Happy New Year, Sunrise. We hope that your first weeks back from break have been going well with your students. And I'd like to welcome you to your final installment of the Megan and Ryan Show. Last year, not the best joke, last year we read about taking care of yourself and the first day of distance learning, and then you dove into an area of strength. Today, our focus is going to be a growth opportunity for you. But before we take a look at the remaining module, here's your big question for you to consider. How has this professional learning experience helped shape your approach to distance learning?
There's a few remaining modules to choose from. Here they are listed on the screen, modules 3 through 9. For my module, my big takeaway, I chose module 5, which is teacher clarity at a distance. Ironically, the strength that Megan chose last week. And so, personally, I can just absolutely relate to the idea that there's a tension between over-communicating and clearly communicating. And so what we know from the classroom is that both teachers and students benefit from teacher clarity. When students know what they're expected to learn, they're much more likely to learn it. And Hattie's research supports this. Teacher clarity in his research has an effect size of 0.75, which means it's a potential learning accelerator. One of the instructional approaches that we want to capture and apply. And so in our current system, the importance of teacher clarity is amplified, right? So things like having very organized lessons that are predictable and sequential to process for students. What that does is it allows to spend their cognitive load or to spend their cognitive energy on learning rather than trying to decode how to learn and what's expected of their learning. Another big pillar of teacher clarity is the flow of communication between teacher and student, which regrettably becomes much more cumbersome in a distance learning environment, rather than being able to stop by a desk and solve a problem kind of in the moment. The loop of learning is extended to hours and sometimes days because there's the digital. We're in a distance learning environment. So one of my big takeaways from this chapter is to apply success criteria and learning intentions into my learning experiences. You may have noticed them modeled throughout our text. It's one of Hattie's big instructional priorities is telling students what to learn and then being able to decode whether or not they've learned it.
All right, thanks, Ryan. I might have to warn you all, it's recorder day in our house, so if you hear my voice being accompanied by the same steady beat of the same note, it's recorder day. So I focused on the feedback assessment and grading in Module 8. This has never been a strength of mine. So I figured what I learned from this chapter, I can use in distance learning, but I can also use when we return to in-person learning. And being a recovering language arts teacher, it's often difficult to offer specific and meaningful student feedback to students in a timely manner. I knew this, but I really didn't. The impact that the socio-emotional climate of a classroom has is linked to the feedback and its effectiveness for any student. Feedback to a kid doesn't mean much if it's not a positive relationship between the student and the teacher. Or, and more importantly, you want to create a class climate where errors are viewed as part of the learning process, because then students will be like, okay, I know I messed up. They're going to help me get better. And also, and this is another key thing, we don't like people to judge us, but asking for feedback from students about your teaching or the methods that you use not only will help create a stronger relationship between the two of you, but it's going to help the teacher continue doing what works best for those students. And it also makes you a little bit more vulnerable, and that helps with your relationship between you and the student. In this module, it talks briefly about exit slips, assessment, competency-based grading. I always tried exit slips, but again, being a language arts teacher, they always had a lot of words. And so it was really hard to read them, tabulate them, adjust my teaching accordingly. And my takeaway from this chapter is how to better use exit slips. I especially like the idea of poll responses or even story retellings, especially in a language arts classroom. And even just having a specific recording of certain students would help me with my assessment and how to change my future teaching. Then when it came to summative assessments, my takeaway is that if I have a bigger repertoire of assessment formats, it's quicker to use and check in with kids. And maybe then I can have a better chance of focusing on one skill that those kids have that I can now fix because of what I got from the summative assessment. And then lastly, competency-based grading. And this is that focus of the mastery of content. So that means I need to know what mastery looks like. And this is where working with my grade alike would help determine the different levels of mastery so that we are on the same understanding of what quality work is, but then also how do we give feedback to those who haven't mastered the skill.
This concludes the Megan and Ryan show. The question to consider for January 22nd team meetings is, how has this professional learning experience helped shape your approach to distance learning? We hope our sessions have created a helpful structure to explore a current and research-based text as a community. We're so thankful for your effort and willingness to engage. Thank you for the impact you make every day on the students at the great Sunrise Park Middle School. Have a great day,
everybody.
See ya.